They say a marriage is in trouble when the fighting gets worse. Nah, that's not it. The real danger, it's when the fighting just stops. When we need to talk, turns into whatever. It's fine. When the house gets quiet, too quiet, and it feels peaceful, but it's not. It's preparation. And by the time you realize what's happening, they've already checked out emotionally. When people think about divorce, they picture some huge blow-up, an affair getting exposed, a screaming match, someone storming out with a suitcase. But that's not how most marriages actually end. They don't explode, they fade, slowly, in tiny moments you barely notice. Like when explaining your feelings starts to feel pointless. When bringing up the same issue feels like talking to a wall. When you catch yourself thinking, why even bother? Nothing ever changes. At first, they still try. They ask to talk. They try to explain. They fight to be heard. But after months, sometimes years, the brain starts connecting the dots. Effort equals disappointment. Being vulnerable equals getting brushed off. Hope equals nothing changing. And eventually, something inside shifts. Here's what most people get wrong. Constant fighting doesn't automatically mean the marriage is dying. Sometimes it means the opposite. Arguments are emotional signals. Complaints are basically saying, hey, I still care. Frustration is pain that wants to be fixed. Nobody fights hard for something they've already given up on. You fight for what still matters. The real red flag is when the complaints disappear. When we need to talk turns into do whatever you want. When the questions stop. When the effort dries up. When everything just goes neutral, that's not growth. That's giving up. There's a moment in a lot of struggling marriages that nobody sees. It doesn't happen in a fight. Some psychologists call it the switch. It's when the brain stops trying to fix the relationship and starts trying to protect itself. For a long time, the partner thinks, if I just say it better, if I'm more patient, if I try harder, maybe something will finally click. But when it doesn't, the nervous system adjusts. It goes, okay, this hurts too much, and it shuts down. At first, it feels numb. Then weirdly, it feels like relief. Not because the marriage got better, but because the constant inner battle finally stopped. And once that switch flips, the relationship isn't something you build anymore. It's something you survive. This is where it gets dangerous. The fighting stops. The tension disappears. The house feels calmer. You think, finally, we're good. Finally, peace. But what you're actually seeing might not be healing. It might be emotional withdrawal. The person who used to push for change now just shrugs. The one who used to cry now looks flat. The one who wanted deep talks now keeps everything surface level. Conversations turn into logistics. How was your day? Good. That's it. No depth. No vulnerability. No risk. It's not that they don't care. It's that caring started costing too much. After the emotional shutdown comes something even quieter. Preparation. It doesn't look dramatic. It looks practical. Sudden interest in finances, talking about separate accounts, saving more money, looking things up privately, being protective of their phone, changing passwords. That's not always cheating. Sometimes it's just safety. After feeling powerless for so long, control feels good. Numbers make sense. Plans feel solid. Preparation feels strong. By this point, the emotional decision, it's already been made. Now it's just logistics. You might also notice something else. They seem more alive outside the marriage. New hobbies, hitting the gym, reconnecting with old friends, smiling more, just not with you. And it's confusing. If they're so unhappy, why do they look happier? Because they're building a version of themselves that doesn't depend on the relationship. They're quietly asking Jug, who am I without this? And once they start liking that version, the bond at home gets thinner, not because they're evil, because they're evolving. Then comes the weirdest stage. They seem lighter, kinder, easier to be around. You start thinking, wait, maybe we're actually okay. But psychologically, this stage has a name. It's relief. The internal debate, stay or go, is over. And when that mental tug of war ends, anxiety drops. They look calm, they look peaceful. But that peace, it's not reconciliation. It's resolution when the divorce finally gets said out loud. It feels like it came out of nowhere, brutal, sudden. One person looks steady, the other looks destroyed. But it's not because one loved more. It's because they've been grieving on totally different timelines. The one leaving, they've been grieving for months, maybe years. The one staying, they just found out the funeral was already planned. What looked like silence was processing. What looked like calm was closure. What looked like indifference was protection. The opposite of love isn't hate. Hate still reacts. The opposite of love is indifference. And indifference doesn't blow up. It fades. Slowly, quietly, almost invisibly. And let me ask you, what's worse in a relationship? Constant fighting or deadly silence? Comment below. If this video put words to something you couldn't explain before, hit subscribe. We talk about the quiet psychology nobody else is naming. Thank you, and keep smiling.